तशरीफ़ लाते हैं हज़रत मौलाना मोहम्मद इस्लाम कादरी साहब और अपनी खूबसूरत मुख्तसर हाज़री पेश करते हैं। उसके बाद हज़रत अल्लामा मौलाना पीर सैयद मोहम्मद इश्तियाक शाह साहब का खसूसी खिताब होगा। आप ज़रा ज़ोरदार नारा लगाए, नारे तकबीर, नारे रिसालत, नारे रिसालत, नारे हैदरी, नारे हैदरी, नारे गौसिया।
अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह अल्हम्दुलिल्लाहि रब्बिल आलमीन वल आक़िबतु लिल मुत्तक़ीन अस्सलातु वस्सलामु अला रसूलिही मुहम्मदिन व आलिही व आलि बैतिही व अस्हाबिही अजमईन, अम्मा बाद फ़अऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम, बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। क़ुल ला अस्अलुकुम अलैहि अजरन इल्लल मवद्दत फ़िल क़ुरबा, सदक़ल्लाहुल अज़ीम व सदक़ रसूलुहुन नबियुल हबीबुल करीम, नहनु अला ज़ालिका मिनश शाहिदीन वश्शाकिरीन, अल्हम्दुलिल्लाहि रब्बिल आलमीन। अस्सलातु वस्सलामु अलैका या रसूलल्लाह व अला आलिका व अस्हाबिका या हबीबल्लाह। अस्सलातु वस्सलामु अलैका या रसूलल्लाह व अला आलिका व अस्हाबिका या हबीबल्लाह। Brothers and sisters in Islam, ulama ikram, today we are here to commemorate Hazrat Maulai Kainat Sher Khuda Karmallah Wajhul Kareem. And today is the day that Hazrat Maulai Kainat departed from this world and his martyrdom took place. Talking about Hazrat Maulai Kainat Sher Khuda Karmallah Wajhul Kareem, this sentence might sound unusual to you, that for somebody like me, it's sometimes quite difficult to talk about Sayyidina Ali Karmallah Wajhul Kareem from the aspect of confusion. And you would say, what is the confusion? That he is the most talked about personality throughout history. All the archives, Hadith Rasul Pak Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, you open up any ayat of the Quran, you will see that Hazrat Maulai Kainat is at the forefront. The difficulty is that sometimes, for example, an orator, he speaks for 20 minutes, he speaks for half an hour, he speaks for an hour. But what is confusing is that from what dimension do we introduce Sayyidina Ali Karmallah Wajhul Kareem? You know, and do we do it justice? When we say that these are the qualities of Hazrat Ali Karmallah Wajhul Kareem, we can never do it justice. And you see, there's many dimensions to the personality of Sayyidina Ali Karmallah Wajhul Kareem. You see, from early parts of the existence, Hazrat Ali Karmallah Wajhul Kareem is right at the forefront. We have Fazail Sahaba, all the archives books, not just one, Musnad Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, they all say that Hazrat Ali Karmallah Wajhul Kareem and Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, they were as one unit right at the beginning of creation. So when you talk about creation, Hazrat Ali Karmallah is right at the forefront. You talk about Hazrat Adam alayhi salam, and Surah Baqarah will tell you, فَتَلَقَّى آدَمُ مِنْ رَبِّهِ كَلِمَاتٍ, and you will see that Imam Jalaluddin Suyuti rahmatullah, he will mention the five blessed family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Hazrat Ali is also there. So you talk about Hazrat Adam alayhi salam leaving a will, leaving some information for his children. Hazrat Ali Karmallah Wajhul Kareem is there. You talk about Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, you talk about the seven sleepers, Ashab-e Kahf, and while you are talking about Ashab-e Kahf, Hazrat Ali Karmallah Wajhul Kareem is at the forefront. You talk about the Noachian flood of Hazrat Nuh alayhi salam, and you see that Hazrat Ali Karmallah Wajhul Kareem, although he arrives much later, hundreds and thousands of years later, but he's at the forefront. So from what dimension do you talk about Sayyidina Ali Karmallah Wajhul Kareem? You talk about tafsir without the interference or without the opinion of Sayyidina Ali Karmallah Wajhul Kareem, you are unable to touch the Quran. You have to understand this personality first, because you have to understand Sarf and Nahf. The authors of both subjects were Sayyidina Ali Karamallahu Wajhul Kareem. So how do you talk about Sayyidina Ali Karamallahu Wajhul Kareem? The ulama say there is 12,000, even more than that, hadiths about the excellence of Sayyidina Ali Karamallahu Wajhul Kareem. So do we hear about them all the time? The ulama have limited time. They have limited space. They have, the books are voluminous. We can't do it justice. This is Hazrat Ali Karamallahu Wajhul Kareem. And then you see that later on, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam arrives in this dunya, Hazrat Ali Karamallahu Wajhul Kareem is right at the forefront. As soon as he is born inside the very blessed building that we all use as our Qibla. We face towards it. And if he was not to face it, our salat would not be accepted. So if you talk about Islam, from the beginning, Sayyidina Ali Karamallahu Wajhul Kareem is there. You talk about the first battle of Islam, Badr, he's at the forefront. You talk about Uhud, he's at the forefront. So whatever aspect or institute of Islam you talk about, you cannot do that subject justice until you open up the perfect qualities of Hazrat Sayyidina Ali Karamallahu Wajhul Kareem. And what you look at how the love of Sayyidina Ali Karamallahu Wajhul Kareem was with Rasulullah, and that it is matchless. There is no other example that you can give. You look at the love of Rasulullah with Sayyidina Ali Karamallahu Wajhul Kareem, and there is no example. You can't give an example. It doesn't matter who it is. They all were blessed personalities. But there is no example. You talk about Sulh Hudaybiyah, he's at the forefront, right at the beginning, right in the front line. So, sometimes it is confusing that from depiction, from selecting what we are going to talk about and what we are not going to talk about. Hazrat Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, he narrates that Sayyidina Ali Karamallahu Wajhul Kareem, he was, and all, Imam Tabari, he in his book of history, he writes that, page 358, and he writes that how was he martyred? He knew about his martyrdom even in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet of Allah, he informed him, foretold him that this would be the situation. He told him the exact days. And I have spent 10 minutes just explaining to you what difficulty I have when I talk about Sayyidina Ali Karamallahu Wajhul Kareem. So I only have another 5 minutes left. I would just like to explain to you what was the excellent qualities that Hazrat Imam Hassan, he talked about when Sayyidina Ali Karamallahu Wajhul Kareem, when he departed. And Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal takes this hadith, Mujam al-Awsat, page 585, the book I have, he talks about this hadith. He narrates it, he collects it, and he says that when Hazrat Ali Karamallahu Wajhul Kareem, he departed, and bear in mind, Hazrat Imam Hassan is the 5th Caliph of Islam, so his opinion matters. And he's the head of department of Sufiya. So all the Sufis in the world would have to bow to the verdict of Hazrat Imam Hassan alayhi salam and Hazrat Imam Hussain. And all the commentators of Quran, they would have to accept, this is a verdict that I'm going to present in front of you. And this is narrated by Hazrat Imam Hassan. He himself is the one who is discussing this. And I have just written it's a lengthy hadith. I would just like to, just some bullet points, so that you understand what was the opinion of Hazrat Imam Hassan, not at the capacity as his son, but as a Caliph of Islam, because we know that he was the 5th Caliph of Islam. After Sayyidina Ali Karamallahu Wajhul Kareem, he became the next Khalifa of Islam. And so this is the Khalifa of Islam. He is speaking, he is explaining to you that who Sayyidina Ali Karamallahu Wajhul Kareem is. He says that it's a lengthy hadith, and this is at the janazah, at the funeral prayer of Sayyidina Ali Karamallahu Wajhul Kareem. He stands up and he says to the audience, he says, today leaves a person from amongst us, he departs from us, he leaves this dunya, a person that the previous Muslims, meaning all the Sahaba, they could not match him. The previous Sahaba, and if any, all my students, I have sent this to them this morning. When I found this, I took a snapshot of it and I sent it to all of them. If anybody requires this, I've given you the page number. It's Imam Hassan who is speaking. He says that those of the Muslims prior to today, they could not match, they could not level up to the excellent qualities of Sayyidina Ali Karramallahu Wajhul Kareem. And those of the Muslims that will come after today, they will not be able to match Sayyidina Ali Karramallahu Wajhul Kareem as well. He was matchless. Nobody was an example. You can present an example of Sayyidina Ali in the previous Muslims, meaning all the Sahaba, until the day of judgment. Nobody could be matched to him. The second thing he says, that this is a personality, and we know this from Surah A'raf as well. If you read to the contents, that this is a personality, this is a person, that when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave him the flag of victory, he gave him the flag. He says, the Archangel Jibreel and Mikael, they would come and assist him on his right and on his left. This is one quality that nobody else shared. There's second quality that Hazrat Imam Hassan talks about. He talks about, and this is Quranic text as well. He says that Yusha bin Nun was a brilliant advisor for Hazrat Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. And he says that he died on this specific day, Laylatul Qadr, the blessed night. And at that time, we know that the 21st, 23rd, 25th, 27th, and 28th, they were all sooner or later, there is difference of opinion, they were all the blessed nights. He says that this was the night that Yusha bin Nun met Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is the same destiny of Sayyidina Ali Karramallahu Wajhul Kareem. He says, the fourth one, he says, Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, when he was taken up from this dunya, it was on this blessed night. And we know that Laylatul Qadr is the night that the Quran was revealed. And we understand that Sayyidina Ali Karramallahu Wajhul Kareem, he was the exegetical commentator of the Quran. So as the night the Quran was revealed, Sayyidina Ali Karramallahu Wajhul Kareem, he departs on this blessed night. He talk about that, and then he talks about many other narration, he talks about many other qualities, but my time is up. And he says, Hazrat Imam Hassan says, and he says this for a reason, so that this could echo in eternity, that this was not just a common person, just a normal person making this statement. He says, those of you who know me, they know that I am Hassan. He says, those of you that don't know me, he says, I am Hassan, and I am the son of Sayyidina Ali. But he says that I am the son of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then he presents an ayat of the Quran Majid Furqan Hamid. When he makes this statement that I am the son of Nabi alayhi salam, he doesn't say Sayyidina Ali, he gives the ayat, and this is in the narration. He says that like the previous prophets, they used to consider their prophets, that they were their offspring. He says in a similar sense, I am the son of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then he talks about that how he is Rasulullah was Bashir and Nazir. And then at the end, he talks about this ayat that I have recited. قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمُوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. He says it is compulsory on every Muslim, every person who reads Kalma Sharif, that to show love and affection and to show love and muwaddat with the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This was the statement of Sayyidina Hassan alayhi salam on the janaza prayer of Sayyidina Ali Karramallahu Wajhul Kareem. Now we have to understand that there is a certificate that came from the skies. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that anybody who shows hatred towards Sayyidina Ali Karramallahu Wajhul Kareem, this is hypocrisy. And the love of Sayyidina Ali Karramallahu Wajhul Kareem is any iman. But this certificate was not given to any other person. If you read all the archives, read all the books of history, you book all the tafasir, this certificate was only given to Sayyidina Ali Karramallahu Wajhul Kareem, and this wasn't just a verdict. This was something that the Sahaba followed suit. They used this practice in their daily lives. And they say that whenever we want to determine if this person is a hypocrite or if this person is a sincere Muslim, we would just mention the name of Sayyidina Ali Karamallahu Wajhul Kareem. So this was a stamp. So what is the reason at the end, and I'm going to leave with a question, you don't usually do that. What is the reason that whenever one quality of Sayyidina Ali Karamallahu Wajhul Kareem is discussed, we have many persons that they concoct and they fabricate new hadiths? For example, we have one quality that nobody else shares, that Sayyidina Ali Karamallahu Wajhul Kareem, he was born inside Baytullah, the Kaaba. We don't have an example, not even in the prophetic society. But then some persons, they concoct a hadith, they fabricate a hadith just to try to dilute the quality of the excellent qualities of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We see that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, like Qari Sahib was saying, Ana madinatul ilmi wa aliyun babuha. Then we have another hadith, and you should know about these hadiths. You should know that nobody shares these qualities with Sayyidina Ali. And if there is any other hadiths, all the ulama have many lengthy discussions about this. They say, oh, okay, he was the door to the ilm, but then we have the walls to the city as well. Then we have a foundation to the city, so the other personalities could. This is fabrication, my brothers, just to dilute the quality, the status of Sayyidina Ali Karamallahu Wajhul Kareem. And I was reading something today, and I would just want to, and it was quite surprising for me. Tarikh-e-Tabri, page 553, around about there. He says that this person, Ibn Muljam, when he goes to assassinate Sayyidina Ali Karamallahu Wajhul Kareem, and he meets Qutama, I think her name was, the one who influenced him she didn't influence him, he was already convinced that he was going to try and martyr Sayyidina Ali Karamallahu Wajhul Kareem. This is just a little bit of history. She ties a ribbon around the head of Ibn Muljam. And we sometimes think that, what are the signs of these persons, that how do we recognize them? But I was thinking that Ibn Muljam was given a ribbon, and she tied it around his head, and he had a partner in crime as well. They both had the same colored ribbons, and now we have one community, they share this quality as well. Like they were the ones that wanted to destroy the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and one of their signs was that they shared a ribbon around their heads, like a scarf, that this woman who tried to convince them to assassinate Sayyidina Ali Karamallahu Wajhul Kareem, we have one Jamaat in these days as well. They wear ribbons. It cleared things up for me today. And they all share the same attire, garments. And this was not something that happened today, it happened a long time ago. And this was one of the first symbols that was given. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to understand the life of Sayyidina Ali Karamallahu Wajhul Kareem. Look at his verdicts. And in this statement, Sayyidina Imam Hassan alayhi salam, he also says that he never left any money, he never left any gold, he never left any silver. But what did he leave? He left ilm. He left his knowledge that will travel to eternity and will serve as a guide for all the Muslims to come. And even on the Day of Judgment, this ilm, by virtue of this ilm, that Sayyidina Ali Karamallahu Wajhul Kareem is the door, we will be given prosperity in Jannah. So this all, wherever you talk about, if you talk about the scales, your amal, he has an influence over it. Like Qari Sahib was saying, just read his verdicts. And you will be fascinated that how he presents arguments, how he draws conclusions. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to show love and affection.